Hello everyone. Well, Steve is a hard act to follow, but I'll do my very best. So my name is Iana Aranda, and I will start out with my story before going into talking a little bit about the subject at hand. So I graduated as a mechanical engineer from a competitor school, University of Toronto. Don't hate. And I went on to do biomedical instrumentation design for cancer research applications, which was fantastic, very rewarding work. And the whole time I was doing that, I was also actually volunteering as part of Engineers Without Borders quite actively. I got into it as a professional before Engineers Without Borders had actually evolved to have a chapter at the University of Toronto. EWB Canada does exist now. I know, I was told today, started right here. I don't want to take that away from you guys. So I was really novice to Engineers Without Borders in New York City as a professional, and felt a lot of the pains of trying to kind of think from outside of my biomedical engineering perspective and apply that to the challenges that I was working on in Kenya, which actually at that time had to do with distribution of water in a rural community for a hospital. So very different work. And that enlightened me to some of the difficulties that engineers encounter when they are entering the space of global development, because I went through those pains myself. Now that was some time ago, and since then I actually was presented an opportunity to launch a social enterprise of our own called Engineering for Change as an extension of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. And that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about today, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about some of the themes that Steve already raised, some of the questions that you were asking, which were very good. So what is Engineering for Change? Engineering for Change is a hybrid organization. We primarily digital organization. We provide opportunities and resources for individuals such as yourselves to do good work. So we have three arms: an online academy where we provide training and all sorts of resources to help engineers and technically trained people who are working in global development or interested in working in global development to understand what's happening. We have an innovation lab where we experiment with new types of knowledge dissemination frameworks and offerings, including something that we are calling the Solutions Library, which includes hundreds of products across 8 sectors that are essentially prior art for you to learn from, to understand what is happening in the space, what kind of innovations are being deployed. We have a community space where you can solicit support for work from a large community of our followers, which is at this point exceeding 1 million, and a media platform where we feature news written by professional journalists around topics relative to that intersection of technology and global development, as well as contributing editors. But essentially, we are ourselves a community, and we co-create these offerings on Engineering for Change with our own community of experts in this space, those who are doing the work, like Steve, who's participated in one of our E4C Connect events, which was an in-person event in Washington, D.C., way back in 2012. Feels like a million years ago, doesn't it, Steve? I know. Yeah, me too. This happens when you get old. Anyway, so what do we believe at Engineering for Change? We believe that the engineering of affordable, appropriate, and sustainable solutions with, and I really want to emphasize this with, because I'll come back to why I'm saying that relative to one of the questions that was asked, with local communities has more potential to improve the human condition than just traditional aid models alone. Not knocking aid, I'm saying there's real huge potential. So we really feel strongly about this particular thing. And engineering has a huge role to play in that solution, in the development of these products and services. And you are all engineer, I'm an engineer, so we can talk about this as engineers do. Like, engineering is amazing. We have this incredible tool set. You know, we're learning so much. You're going to be able to solve problems. But the thing is that to really solve these very difficult global development challenges, watch out for my coffee cup over there, you might knock it over, just FYI. Just stay on your carpets. So the problem is that the challenges that are faced in these global development instances, I'm sorry, I totally called you out on that. That was really uncool. Anyway, so the problem with all of these challenges is that it requires more than just an understanding of thermodynamics or fluid theory or anything else. It really requires a whole lot more tools in your tool belt. It requires economics understanding. When Steve was talking about business, I'm not sure he learned that in mechanical engineering all during his degree. No. When we're talking about the real realities on the ground of deploying these products, implementing them, you're talking about social science. We're talking about public health. All of these other facets that really are critical to ensuring that these solutions actually succeed, while still maintaining all of the best practices of engineering, the rigor that comes with the work that you do. So this is something that I want to speak to today, and I want to highlight with a particular example from one of our community members, someone that we work with quite closely, on the problem that's related to energy, specifically around cooking. And cooking, maybe you won't think about the fact that this is an energy problem, but the fact of the matter is 3 billion people today cook on open fires with biomass, wood, right, or dung or whatever it is, but they're cooking on open fires. And there's real ramifications to this practice of cooking like this, primarily indoors with little to no ventilation, and the ramification is right there in that picture. The equivalent to having all this smoke coming off an open fire is about smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And what we see, and I've seen this myself, believe it or not, working on that project in Kenya on a water distribution system for a hospital, we tracked disease rates for the community. And number 2, upper respiratory tract infections. So it's very real, and this has been proven. It's a huge, huge issue. And who is most impacted by this issue? Question for you. Women and children, yes, women and children, the people who are doing the cooking primarily in these communities. So a huge challenge and a huge difficult challenge. So this challenge has been recognized. This is not something new. It's been around for some time, and there's been many fantastic organizations that have been working to address this challenge. And one solution that's been identified and it's been scaled up pretty substantially are clean cook stoves. Basically, cook stoves that are designed to be more fuel efficient, that have less particulate matter as a result of the cooking process. They're really, really fantastic devices. And there's an organization I'll speak to in the next slide, the Alliance for Clean Cook Stoves, that has tracked over 300 of these cook stoves around, and many million of people, 830 million people to date, have received in some way, whether through market-based channels or through aid, have received these clean cook stoves. These are some of the cook stoves. There's a snapshot from our solutions library. So a lot of efforts going into this. In fact, even from current presidential candidates, Secretary Hillary Clinton is behind the Global Alliance for Clean Cook Stove, support from celebrities. The alliance was launched in 2010 with over 500 organizations who are working in this field to do something similar to what Lighting Global is doing, to try to standardize the performance aspects of these clean cook stoves, to enable market forces to actually propagate these clean cook stoves, and to really work towards improved performance and that standardization. In fact, the International Standards Organization is involved in actually getting that standard to completion. 2010, we are in 20... It's such an easy question. I just gave it right to 2016. 6 years later, the standard's not there yet. That just goes to show you how long it takes for standards to come to fruition. And I'm here because I work with ASME, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, and we do a little standards work here and there. So, clean cook stoves. Ta-da! Problem solved, right? It's not that easy. It's not that easy. The problem is not solved. In 2010, when the Alliance for Clean Cook Stoves was being launched, a young engineer, a PhD student at that time, who was at Iowa State University, was actually investigating the problem that he was understanding around cook stove adoption. And he really wanted to understand what was happening in terms of energy in small rural Malian village. What was happening with respect to the needs and practices associated with energy. And by the way, those were not cook stoves at that time, at least not those clean cook stoves. And basically, to put it in engineering terms, where did kilojoules enter the system and where did kilojoules leave? So what he wanted to do is really get that picture. But he recognized, and this is where that engineering for global development practice really came in, that the way that he'd been taught to approach analyzing the system was going to require some tweaking. So he took some inspiration from the social science field. And he pursued a really comprehensive ethnographic study, right? Understanding how the community was working. And this is a young white man who decided to basically track and shadow Malian women to see what they did every day, what happened every day. So he channeled his inner Malian woman and he hung out with them every day. And this diagram right here is what kind of is a quick snapshot of a Malian woman's day. About 65% of it is invested in an energy culinary chain. From the very first moment, I think it was 5:30 in the morning, ungodly hour in my humble opinion. But anyway, 5:30 in the morning, we're getting up, and from there, from the gathering of the firewood, to the stoking of the fire, to the making tea several times a day, to making the meals, to boiling water for bathing, for cleaning, for many other things. This is the cycle of the woman's day until, I never remember the times, until 9 p.m. All right, so there's that cycle. And he discovered some very interesting insights in doing this work. You might think, oh, what's really the value? But it's huge value. So some things that might seem kind of clear or evident right away is that energy use varies by application. Fair enough. At home, I doubt you only ever use your microwave. I'm sure you've at least once touched your stove. Even if you store your shoes in it, you've touched it. So you have a stove, you have maybe a toaster oven, various applications various uses require various applications and cultural habits. So in the case of the Malian women, for example, what you see here is making shea oil, which requires a certain type of fire for a certain amount of time, or roasting peanuts, right? Something that you can sell on the market. Or I mentioned boiling water to bathe, or boiling water for some other purpose, making medicine. All of these things require different kinds of energy output. Number 2, stove stacking and untended fires are very, very common. So just to give you a little bit of sense, as what I talked about just a few minutes ago around the various devices that you have, in the clean cooking space, that is called stove stacking, having more than one device. So even if you have a clean cook stove, you will still use a 3-stone fire. You will still use a traditional technology like clay stove, even though that clean cook stove is sitting right there. Because likely you might need 2 devices, and you are always using 2 fires anyway. So that all of a sudden inhibits that impact that we're trying to achieve with clean cook stoves. And untended fires are common. So let's put our thinking hats on, channel your inner Malian woman. Why would a woman leave her fire? Oh, a woman said that. That was easy for you. Have you been a Malian woman lately? Just been to Mali? All right. So yes, children. Oftentimes they leave their fire because they have to tend to children or to pick up something else or take care of something outside. So the problem with clean cook stoves is that because they're so super efficient, the light goes out pretty quickly. The fire goes out pretty quickly in that chamber if you leave it for a while. So you have to start the fire again. Whereas with a traditional fire, that doesn't necessarily happen. Food for thought, right? And what he concluded from all this work, from all this research, was actually a very good engineering design insight. A single improved cooking device will likely be insufficient for all the applications that it's needed for. All right, so that was 2010. 2012, 2 years later, Nathan published his paper, and we've actually had a case study on it and so forth, but 2012 rolls around, and there is a fantastic group out of MIT called the Poverty Action Lab. And the Poverty Action Lab is one of the leading organizations really driving evidence-based practices in order to really understand what happens in development. So one of the mechanisms they use is randomized controlled trials, right, where they have one group that maybe doesn't get a particular intervention, another group that does, and they can do a comparison to see what the impacts are. So they conducted a randomized evaluation of improved cook stoves, and it was one of the biggest ones. And what they found was they confirmed Nate's observations on a very, very large scale. Most people who received cook stoves did not regularly use them. They didn't invest enough in maintenance of them, thereby reducing the efficiency value. And they really didn't value the improvements in health enough either, which speaks to those notions of behavior change, those issues associated with really communicating the importance of these devices. That was 2012. Last year, October 29th, 2015, this article came out on the Washington Post. So these cheap cook stoves were supposed to save millions of lives. What happened? What happened? Why are we not fixing this problem yet? Because technology is only a part of the equation. And I'm going to say this again, we as engineers, me, myself included, we love us some technology. We're like, give us that technology, it's so good. I'm going to tell you what you need. Have this thingamabob, it's better than sliced bread, you want it. The thing is, that's only a part of the solution, an important part. But if we don't think and understand all of the other motivators, all the other drivers around how that solution is actually going to be used, then we've missed the mark, man. Just wasted a whole lot of time and a whole lot of money likely, and a whole lot of faith and passion, which is a terrible, terrible thing to waste, in addition to your mind, as we've heard. So technology is only a part of the solution, but I don't want to have you walking out of here saying, well, God, what am I going to do now? I mean, what I'm trying to get across is that there's a way to really take those lessons. Don't let that lesson from 2010 come rear its ugly head in 2016. What can we do to design better solutions based on what we've learned? And this is where prior art and these lessons really come into play. Thinking about these problems, looking at what's been done before, understanding it so you can come up with a better solution. Like, for example, the BioLite home stove, also a cook stove. Very, very good, efficient cook stove. But there's one little thing here that you're seeing. You see, she's on the phone, right? So the BioLite home stove is innovative in that what it does is has a thermoelectric generator that is in that orange part where the plug you're seeing, the USB plug is. So that actually drives an internal fan that both improves the performance of the stove by actually adding more air to the fire, but also powers the USB outlet so you can plug in your phone. So now we're thinking about the problem a little differently. We know mobile phones are prevalent. We know people want them. We know that we can't do without them. Gotta check that Facebook, really important. Stuff's happening. Gotta get on that Snapchat. Same everywhere else. We're all people, we are kind of have similar behaviors in these things. So by having this hybrid solution, all of a sudden you're also influencing some behaviors. You might not want to leave that fire if you can talk on your phone. Kind of a nice benefit. I'm not saying this is the thing that's gonna save us and that this no longer means that all cook stoves will be perfectly operational, but this is some new thinking. This is a different approach and leverages some of those insights. And what's interesting about how BioLite does it, and this is something that Steve was talking about, I know you don't want to serve the camping market, but look, you kinda, this is their version for the developed world market. So this camp cook stove costs about $129, Amazon, go get one, it's great. You know how I know it's great? Because during Hurricane Sandy, they were charging cell phones at Wall Street with it. Kind of really awesome, because there was a lot of dead cell phones during Hurricane Sandy. I was in New York, so I know. So what they do is they take some of the funds that they make through the BioLite camp stove, and they reinvest that into the business of actually scaling up the developing world market, because there are those challenges, those huge challenges of trying to get these products with lots of constraints and lots of fluctuations and the kind of influences that are often very difficult to account for. So that BioLite cook stove and the Nocaro N200 and the newest version are all in our E4C Solutions library. We've been working behind the scenes. As I mentioned, the reason I joined the organization is because I saw some of the challenges that I was facing in trying to understand how to do this work. And one of the challenges is understanding what has been done. And if you weren't here and if you didn't know about, how many people have heard about the BioLite home stove before? One. Okay, cool. Well, some of you guys don't count. You can't raise your hands. How about the Nocaro? One or two, but bottom line, minority. Not, oh, of course you heard about it. But I hope so. That'd be weird, right? But most of you had not, which means that we are not helping you to understand what already exists, so you can come up with new and interesting ideas or innovate on what exists or partner with an organization so that you can actually get these products to market or into the hands of those end users who need them most. So what we've been working on is a catalog of these various solutions across 8 sectors. We look at water, sanitation, agriculture, information systems, a big one, transportation, housing, energy. I always lose count as to which one I said, so if I said it twice, sorry. Count them up, they'll add up to 8 eventually. And what we provide is information around both the market pricing information, distribution numbers, but also the engineering aspects, the performance, right? What kind of performance these products expected to see. Also, the thing that's really important to us is the compliance with regulation, just compliance of any kind at all, because one of the things that's also critically challenging in this space, and another layer to add to the mix, is the fact that many times regulation is just absent. In the case of COOKSTOVES, they're still working for the standards, 2016, but that's one sector. There are solar home systems that are unregulated. There are housing approaches, earth bags, compressed earth blocks that are completely unregulated. So those are some of the challenges facing you if you enter this space, and that you have to be cognizant of that really make a big difference in how you can scale your product. So check it out, Solutions Library. And I wanted to end this on why we're doing this, why this is important to us, why we are here as E4C, is because we don't believe this, and even though we're called Engineering for Change, we believe that there's many individuals at play here, that multidisciplinary teams will really be the way we move the needle on development, because not one organization can really solve global poverty. Many of us can, and we want to be, and we want to encourage you to be rigorous and excellent in everything that you do, because these challenges are so very important. And the rising tide will raise all ships. And I'll stop, and no more cliches followed that. So thank you so much for your time. I'll take any questions or any insights to share. I have no giveaways. Mine will be free answers. Thank you.
As a student, how do you get involved with E4C?
So E4C, thank you, student, for asking that wonderful student of life. So E4C, we're not a chapter. So this is one of the questions I get a lot. Is we're not a chapter-based organization. We are not EWB. All right. So you have EWB. EWB is your boots on the ground. They are going to projects, committing 5 years to that project in that community. E4C, we are a knowledge exchange platform. You can engage with us anytime you want. You can join a webinar. You can read our news. You can comment on things that you see in the field. You can share a solution if you've seen one that's good in the field and you want us to include it in the solutions library. You can look for jobs or other opportunities for, if you want to do this work. We have posted volunteer jobs, fellowships, training opportunities, the whole shebang. We are here as your resource. Put us in your pocket because we're on your phone. Oh my God, that was awesome. I just made that up. Anyway. Thank you, Steve. It's a little alley-oop. Any other questions? I think they asked you all the good questions. Yes, sir.
Of course, like you said that you had all the stoves in the website and had products and everything, but sometimes it's hard to know if something fails, as you say, because of the technology or because of the implementation or any other thing. So it's a little hard to know if a product is good or bad, just looking at the product.
You're asking, so the question was, you have all this information, but it's really hard to know if a product has failed or succeeded. Yes. The answer is yes, it's very hard to know. So there's no standard by which we say product is successful, product has failed, right? Just because, let's say, the product delivers in terms of its performance, technical performance, doesn't mean that it's in the hands of every desired user, right? So we don't have the perfect answer to that. What we're doing is we've actually worked with a community of development practitioners and engineers who are working in this space to determine what is the highest priority information that you need to consider when looking at a particular product. Something that gives you a sense of how well it's doing. Yes, the performance information is certainly important, and we've got that. But the reason why we have that distribution to date parameter is so that you know the difference between a product that's been distributed to 5 people versus 50,000. Because that says something. They're doing something right. May be perfect, but they're doing something right. And the other aspect of it is even the user acquisition model. How does a user get it? So what we talk about with respect to the solutions library is we highlight things like, is it by donation only? Is it that you can buy it? Is it distributed through an Avon Lady model? How does an end user actually acquire this product? Is it through a hybrid? Many of these all mashed up together. So the distribution question is one of those very, very difficult challenges in this space. And that's the thing that actually hinders many of these products from getting to scale, because they cannot, or they have struggles identifying effective distribution channels. And frankly, not enough dollars go into that. Not enough investment is made because people want the doodad. People want the thingy. when I hold it up and say, look at this amazing thing, but like, how are you gonna get it to that person that lives in that rural environment? So there's a few organizations that we've highlighted that do work in that space, and I encourage you to search on E4C and elsewhere for innovative distribution models, because they're really kind of turning the idea on its head and thinking about that specific challenge. I kind of tangentially answered some of your questions there, I think. You got it. You're good. All right. Yes, my Malian lady. Yes.
So I'm not an engineer, so hopefully this is a stupid question, but I was just wondering, how do people fix these products that you're advertising on your library?
Right.
So a lot of times in development,
Mhm.
there's a common feedback.
Yeah.
You know, you have these delivered these products and
Mhm.
hurrah, but then 5 years later they're no longer being used.
Yeah.
So how are you creating those networks of people that can fix them?
I'm very glad you're asking that. So I do want to be kind of very specific about one word. We do not advertise these products. We do not endorse them. We're a neutral body. It's an extension of our founding organization's missions. We were founded by ASME, IEEE, WPUSA. So we're not here to tell you, buy this one, don't buy that one. We want to leave you to make a decision as to what is a sound product. And one of the parameters that we talk about specifically is operation and maintenance. Right, so what are the expectations for operation maintenance? Do you need a trained technician? Can the end user fix this? Do you need to send it back to the manufacturer? Is there a warranty? If so, how long is that warranty? Right, so various products have various constructs. We're not here to say one way or the other, whether one way is better than the other, but yes, it's important to highlight the fact that think about operation and maintenance when you're actually, let's say, a big procurement agency from the UN, when you're getting 50 million of these products. When they break, what happens? Is there actually infrastructure in place to be able to address the needs of the community? Or is the community trained? Or is there a booklet that's given out in the local language about how to maintain this ceramic water purifier or insert product X here? So you're asking the absolute right question, and it is a huge and valid pain point. After sales service is something that is rarely provided for many of these products. Keeping in mind, though, also that many of the organizations that are behind these products are small social enterprises, so it's very challenging. And that's where you get in these big design questions, the trade-off between keeping something extremely affordable or giving all the service that you can get with Apple Care, the Apple Genius Bar. Or, I don't know, my iPhone broke the other day, and the guy's extent of his troubleshooting was like pressing the buttons like, yeah, it's broken. I was like, I did that, so I'm here. But anyway, I paid a lot of money every month. Insurance on top of that phone to get that service. Sorry, just a rant about Apple. But anyway, so we do recognize that that's a major issue, and we want to encourage that. So as E4C, we are actually driving conversation around that on the bigger level with the subject matter experts that work with us on these resources. Behind the scenes, we also have programs where we ask these questions, and what we're striving to do is actually determine what are the tangible ways that we can provide services or we can infuse financing into the space so that we can advocate for these kinds of issues to be solved, whether it's through regulation, whether it's through guidelines, whether it's through something else. This is where we feel that we have a role to play to really deal with that problem. Any other questions? Yes?
Hi. Just for some background, I'm also an entrepreneur, but I was involved with the engineering last year, the returning engineer fellow
You're going to have to speak up a little bit, so sorry.
Sorry. So I tried to join the engineering for change Swiss design group, and I guess I expected to find like I don't know. I didn't know it was going to be like specifically on specific development stuff, but I thought you said something about platforms for knowledge dissemination, and that's something I've been so I guess I can advise for feedback.
Okay.
And also on like, are you expecting to have like a page on say education or other?
Okay. So thank you for that. The question was about platforms for knowledge dissemination and if we're planning to have any resources on education. So E4C as a whole is a knowledge dissemination platform. We aggregate and disseminate information at the intersection of technology and global development. So the Solutions Library is one part of E4C the whole, of which we have our professional development page where you can access all our webinars and you can access information about if you're planning to, let's say, pursue graduate training and you're looking to understand what institutions are out there who provide training on engineering for global development. then we've tracked all those there, as well as many publications that have academic work on this space. In addition to that, we're currently developing some courses that are going to be available for free, titled Introduction to Engineering for Global Development. It's a long title. We want to do EGD 101. 101's not understood everywhere. Lesson learned. Introduction to Engineering for Global Development coming within a few months. So if you want to really get a better sense of what's happening, some of the best practices, that is also coming down the pipeline. Got a lot of irons in the fire. Does that help to answer the question? Yes. All right. Any other? Oh, I'm getting a nod. Last one.
No, one more.
Just one more. Lucky winner. You came late. You get to ask the last question. That's pretty sweet.
What makes you say iron in the fire?
What makes E for C an iron?
What does that mean, iron in the fire?
Oh, what does iron in the fire mean? You know I think it's because, okay, I'm going to take a stab here because I actually don't know the history of that saying, and it's something that I've always wanted.
I can tell you what it means.
Oh, wait, can I guess and then you can tell me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to guess that it's for branding like cattle and you put an iron in the fire. I could be totally wrong with this, but I just took a wild guess right there. Oh, what do you know the answer for real, right?
I'm not sure, but I know about gold.
But you know about?
Gold, because when gold goes in fire, it gets purified. But
Gold?
I'm not sure about iron.
Okay, I'm gonna stick with mine. I'm gonna say it's for branding cattle because I think you have to put it in there. It has to get hot. Then you sear the cow.
I think you're right.
I mean, I'm not a cowboy, but if anybody can confirm does anybody have Google? Can somebody Google what the origin of this saying is? Because now I'm just kind of dying of curiosity more than anything else. All right, I think I'm getting the clap to